After more than 2 decades of partnering with the United States, Canada, Europe and Japan, Russia has announced plans to withdraw from the International Space Station, also known as ISS, after the end of 2024. Such a move could leave America's huge investment in the station and our astronauts vulnerable if immediate action is not taken.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Beyond the Gravity, a channel dedicated to discovering more about space, our final frontier. Today we have a very important and timely topic to discuss: the implications of Russia's war in Europe on the International Space Station. The International Space Station, which circles the planet from 250 miles up, is often considered to be above the earthly conflicts that play out beneath. The orbiting outpost has weathered its share of political turmoil in more than 2 decades of hosting humans. As a symbol of post-Cold War cooperation, the US-Russian partnership has been a clear success. But it has not always been a smooth ride. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 has resulted in hundreds of thousands of deaths, millions homeless and displaced, and billions of dollars of damage to infrastructure. The conflict has also had less immediate but significant impacts on other areas, including on the space industries of Ukraine and Russia, but also globally in terms of the launch market, spaceflight activity, and international cooperation. In the wake of the start of the conflict on February 24, 2022, and the resulting international backlash against Russia, the then head of the Russian Space Agency, Dmitry Rogozin, threatened to end its cooperation with the West on the International Space Station program over sanctions imposed on Russia. He also issued a threat to SpaceX founder and CEO Elon Musk for the company's role in providing connectivity through its Starlink satellites. Rogozin has since been removed as head of Roscosmos and replaced by Yuri Borisov. So the announcement by Yuri Borisov, the new head of Roscosmos, that Russia will quit the International Space Station after 2024 is only the latest expression of the country's discontent. In 2015, Roscosmos said it would leave the partnership in 2024, unbolt its modules, and use them to build an outpost of its own. A Russian space station remains one of the agency's prime ambitions. Fractures in the partnership, which also includes Europe, Canada and Japan, have appeared before. In 2014, Russia's then Deputy Prime Minister Dmitry Rogozin said his country would reject plans to extend ISS operations beyond 2020 in protest against sanctions over the annexation of Crimea. The threat was dropped, but Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 sparked further upheaval for space cooperation that looks far more challenging to repair. The US and Russia entered talks in January 2022 to operate the ISS until 2030, but Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine triggered a fresh round of sanctions, with some having a direct impact on the country's space program. Responding to the sanctions, Russia claimed the space station could crash on an unsuspecting nation without the Russians to keep it aloft. NASA's current plan is to ditch the ISS in 2031, deorbiting the aging structure on a trajectory that would send any remnants of re-entry into a remote region of the South Pacific Ocean. In the years beforehand, it is said that the station may further open its airlocks to commercial enterprises for activities as broad as tourism, sports and movie making, such as the gap in the funding to keep the space station in orbit. However, the extreme uncertainty over Russia's commitment means that space agencies working on the ISS must plan for the country's departure while hoping that this does not happen. As Dr. Pavel Luzan, a Russian military and space analyst, points out that Borisov said after 2024, not at the end of 2024, leaving the door open for longer involvement. Dr. John Logsdon, the former director of the Space Policy Institute at George Washington University, said that with Russia's stance on the ISS, space agencies would be in dereliction of their duty if they had not made contingency plans. It's been a hope that Russia could be persuaded to continue, but that hope was pre-Ukraine, he said. With all the ramifications of the Ukraine situation, resuscitating Western Russia cooperation is going to be very challenging. The US and its partners have to take this seriously. If Russia quits, the immediate task would be keeping the station in orbit. That role is now fulfilled by the Russian Progress spacecraft, which gives the ISS periodic boosts to maintain its altitude. Northrop Grumman and SpaceX are contenders for taking over if Russia drops out, but it is not a trivial job. "It is not easy, but technically it is possible," said Luzin. "The US and other partners do have all necessary capabilities and technologies for this. Another option is to pay Russia to carry on with its station-keeping service." Professor Jan Werner, the former Director General of the European Space Agency, said his personal belief and hope was that Russia would continue beyond 2024. "The station without the Russians makes no sense. If Borisov's announcement becomes reality, it is the end of the ISS," he said. "Maybe with some extraordinary effort it is possible to keep the ISS without Russia, but I doubt that this will be done," Werner added. "I always said, space is a bridge over troubled water, and the Russian regime broke the bridge." Whatever the fate of the International Space Station, the next step in human space exploration will see alliances shift. While the US, Europe, Canada and Japan have plans for the Moon, including a lunar space station, Russia will partner with China for a separate lunar station and moon base. For Russia, the prospect of future space collaborations with the West looks dim, and that could affect its aspirations. "Russia destroyed the basis for these relations," said Luzin. "The problem is that the Russian space program is impossible without space cooperation with the West. Russia will lose its manned space program, its space exploration program, the GLONASS, satellite navigation system, and even the military part of its space activity, because all these fields depend on the American, European and Japanese components, industrial equipment and technologies." According to Logsdon, Russia's discontent with the ISS is an opportunity to think seriously about whether the station has had its time. The US could, with the agreement of its partners, say enough is enough and change its plans and deorbit early, he said. "It's been a symbolic success, but you can't say every year it's newly a symbolic success. There's a fair question as to why spend multiple billions of dollars to keep it in operation." As we conclude today's discussion, it's clear that the ramifications of Russia's war extend beyond terrestrial borders, reaching into the vastness of space, and is in the early stages of building new alliances, both here on Earth and in space. As geopolitics shapes the relationships on Mother Earth, which will have lasting impacts on space and future plans for colonization, we'll be keeping a close eye on developments and keeping you informed every step of the way. If you have any insights, questions or opinions on this complex subject, share them in the comments below. Thanks for watching with us here at the Beyond the Gravity channel, and we see you in the next video.